Hey everyone, Rich Gasaway here. Before I get into today's episode, I want to let you know that I have a few openings left in November and December for situational awareness programs. Has your department hosted a Situational Awareness Matters tour stop event yet? No? You haven't? Seriously? What in the world are you waiting on? Did you know that issues related to situational awareness or the barriers that flaw awareness are implicated in nearly every significant first responder casualty report? It's a really, really big deal. The problem is most first responders know so little about it. They think so long as they're paying attention or keeping their head on a swivel that they have good situational awareness. And as anyone who's attended any of my programs know, this is simply not the case. Sure, paying attention is part of situational awareness development, but it isn't all of it. There is so much more to it. If you think it's all about paying attention, you're just not informed. Don't be uninformed on a topic that's this important, a topic that can literally save your life. There's so much at stake, as situational awareness serves as the foundation for good decision making, and it's the decision making that will drive the outcomes, good outcomes or catastrophic outcomes. Contact me through the website samatters.com and we'll get something set up for you. Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is Maurice Lentz from the Rogersville Volunteer Fire Department. You're listening to Dr. Richard Gasaway on SA Matters Radio. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello, and welcome to episode 120 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence environments. The SA Matters mission is simple: to help you see the bad things coming and time to avoid bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from Overland Park, Kansas, where I'm in town to deliver a situational awareness program for the Overland Park Fire Department and others throughout the region. Thank you to Training Chief Gary Wilson for the efforts to bring this valuable training to your members and to others. If you're interested in attending an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stop, head over to the SA Matters website and click on the blue box on the right side of the homepage labeled Upcoming Events Schedule. More than 500 agencies on 4 continents have hosted Situational Awareness Matters tour stop events. I mentioned at the top of this program that I'm booking for the fall of 2016. I'm also actively booking the programs for 2017. So if you're interested for something, way out there in 2017, contact me now to get on the schedule. Here's a tip for how you can host a program at a reduced cost. I schedule many what I call companion programs. These are programs on adjoining days to other programs. So if you see I'm delivering a program a few hours away from where your department is located and you're interested in tagging along as a companion, contact me. You can save as much as 20% off the program cost by being a companion to an existing program. That's what I did recently when I was in Texas. While I was there doing a program for the Texas Interagency Mutual Aid Association Conference, the Firefighter Fire Department tagged along as a companion. That's what I did in Michigan while I was doing a program for the Eastern Michigan University. The Brighton Area Fire District tagged on as a companion. And that's what I did recently when I was in Montana doing a program for the Montana Fire Alliance. The Spokane, Washington Fire Department tagged on as a companion. If you want to be put on the let me know when you're going to be in my area list, just send me an email through the SA Matters website. Just click on the Contact Us link. In today's feature segment, I interview Instructor John Dixon about the normalization of deviance, complacency, groupthink, and more. After the interview, stick around, and I'll share with you some information about the locations of upcoming Situational Awareness Matters Tour Stop events. John Dixon is a career fire officer with an urban fire department in New Jersey and has over 20 years in the fire service. John has a passion for training, mentoring, and inspiring up-and-coming officers and firefighters. He also serves as an instructor for the Bergen County Fire Academy in New Jersey and is an advocate for the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. John believes that his time served as a United States Marine ingrained several fundamental fire service principles in him, including discipline, education, and servant leadership. He is passionate about helping others and seeking continuous improvement through providing cutting-edge training and education. John's definition of success is seeing those that he has trained, mentored, and inspired become great leaders themselves. It is his desire that these leaders inspire other firefighters to do the same, thus having a positive ripple effect in the fire service. John has presented at national and regional conferences such as Firehouse Expo, Firehouse World, FDIC, the South Atlantic Fire Rescue Expo, the Ohio Fire and EMS Expo, the Center for Public Safety Excellence Conference, and the South Carolina Fire Chiefs Conference, just to name a few. John's writings have been published in Firehouse Magazine, Firehouse.com, FirefighterToolbox.com, and his personal blog, Instructor John Dixon. Without further delay, let's join our interview with John Dixon talking about the normalization of deviance. John, welcome to the show this morning. I'm really excited to have you with me.
Well, good morning, Brother Rich. Thank you so much for having me on the SA Matters radio show. I'm excited to be here as well.
Good. John, we were together recently in Florida for the Center for Public Safety Excellence Conference, and I was doing a program and you were doing a program, and the program that you were doing was on a topic related to deviant behavior, or more specifically, the normalization of deviant behavior. And I know your topic is gaining a lot of traction, and I want the listeners to understand your message. It's really important, but let's start with just the basic of what is this concept, normalization of deviance. Just kind of frame it up for us, because I know there will be some people listening that say, what is that? I've never heard of that.
All right. Well, first off, to be fair, I did not coin the term normalization of deviance. Dr. Diane Vaughan, who was a world-renowned sociologist during her studies of the Challenger shuttle launch, in her book, she coined this term normalization of deviance, and it's basically the gradual process through which unacceptable practices or standards become standard. We as humans, under time and pressure, revert to deviant behavior, and it is repeated without catastrophic results or negative outcomes. Thus, the behavior becomes the social norm for the actors who are engaging in the specific behavior, and more detrimental to the entire organization who has to live with the outcomes of those behaviors. So that, in a nutshell, is what the normalization of deviance is. Astronaut Mike Mullane talks about it at great length, and people who are much smarter than I am really dive into this. And it's a topic that really interests me in terms of the fire service, because as an instructor and as a fire officer, I see deviant behavior quite often. And it's incumbent upon us to try to stop this chain of events.
So is normalization of deviance, stated maybe another way, just bad habits becoming the routine?
I would say so, yeah. They are shortcuts. It's human nature. It's part of the human condition to take shortcuts, where the difference between NOD and complacency are seen is that normalization of deviance, you have to knowingly and willingly participate in those bad outcomes and bad shortcuts, versus complacency is you may not know what is happening around you. You don't know specifically that you are being complacent until it's too late.
Okay, so that was interesting that you said when you're participating in the normalization of deviance, you knowingly and willfully are doing this?
Indeed. You have to have a cognitive decision to want to take that shortcut, to want to engage in an action that you maybe should have known better not to do. Where the real danger lies is when that behavior becomes so ingrained into your daily habits that you no longer see it as being deviant. You no longer see it as lending towards negative outcomes, whether it be injuries and, God forbid, line-of-duty deaths, or even just organizational discourse. You have to willingly participate in those actions, and that's just my opinion. I'm sure it could be misconstrued, but that is just John Dixon's opinion on knowingly and willfully participating in NOD.
What are some of the warning signs that a organization, individual or organization, might be drifting in the direction of normalized deviant behavior?
So some of the warning signs personally can be low morale or a dispassion for the job, whether you are a career or volunteer. You see it all the time. It's also indicated as burnout. A lot of times people might be stressed. They might be feeling that time and pressure vice around them, and it builds to low morale and dispassion. One of the things organizationally is you see apathy or a stoic or stoicism from the organization. The status quo. One of the most complacent quotes out there is, the fire went out and nobody got hurt. If that is the litmus test by which you are basing success, engaging success, that is a warning sign of normalization of deviance. Some other warning signs can be increased injuries from the members. And they're not just physical injuries. It could be emotional injuries. Near misses. Think about all the near misses that go underreported. And that can really show us a cross-section of the fire service to some of the warning signs. Another one is that you see is a lot of people are talking about the basic skills, and there is a decline in what people would call basic skills. We can force entry, we can practice forcible entry, we can practice stretching lines and throwing ladders to we turn blue in the face. But at some point in time, we need to realize that not everyone is going to be the Superman in the very basic skills, because what might be basic to me as a fire officer may not be very basic to the recruit firefighter or the 25, 30, 45-year veteran firefighter. And then most importantly, the biggest warning sign is groupthink. And groupthink, if everybody is thinking alike, then no one is really thinking. So those are some of the top warning signs that may be present to indicate that normalization of deviance is learned.
Well, let me circle back. You had mentioned that near misses might be a symptom or a warning. Now, as I think of near misses and as I talk with people about their near misses as relates to situational awareness, I think that there are two ways that near misses happen to individuals or organizations. They happen and people realize, wow, that was a near miss. Or it happens and they have no idea that they had a near miss. In other words, it occurred in a way that was covert and they didn't even know it. So as we're talking about deviance as it relates to near misses, are we talking about the ones that are known but they choose to just pass on by and say, like you said, no one got hurt, so let's not worry about that. It was a chance occurrence, but they know that it happened. Or are we talking about the near misses that occurred, and they're just completely unaware that they had one? Or are we talking about both?
The answer to that question is yes. I believe that we are talking about both. For the instances in organizations where they realize, wow, we could have found ourselves in a jackpot here, a couple of things went wrong, that is what I call collateral damage. Because even as I said earlier, that people have to knowingly and willingly participate in deviant behavior, they can be victims of collateral damage from other people's deviant behavior. So that lends to the first point of, wow, we almost landed in a jackpot here in terms of a near miss, and they recognized, and they are going to put in place a set of checks and balances to keep that from happening again, hopefully. That is the hope. The other one where they don't realize that they've had a near miss, that is the stealth killer there, because the deviant behavior could have been ingrained so long ago that people fail to pick up on those warning signs. It has become socially norm for that organization to operate in the manner in which they do. Thus, it's going to lead to more near misses. And when you see time and time again of, just to use one example, of the Cortland incident accident with Captain Peter Dern, and that SART investigation, and I commend that investigative team. The third causation factor was normalization of deviance. And when you investigate the factors leading up to that and the outcomes that they had, it shows that they were merely victims of the organization. The organization takes on its own identity because of deviant behaviors of those within it and outside of the organization, if that makes some sense.
It does. It does, for sure. Now, you had also in the previous response there had mentioned the groupthink, and I don't want to have our discussion go on without you having the opportunity to explain for the listener who might, for the first time, have heard that term groupthink, and kind of unpackage that and explain what it is and how does an organization get to a point where a groupthink occurs.
Well, groupthink can be summed up in terms of harmony or conformity. All right, and it's a dysfunctional decision-making model. And when we are looking for a consensus, and within the fire service, we try to find consensus in a lot of sensitive ideas and decision-making models, best practices, groupthink. Back in the early 50s and 60s, when the current education that was available at the time, they thought that, breaking windows and opening up was a great thing, but it was at the time, and I don't want to get into a strategy and tactics discussion, but now that we're starting to learn that maybe overventilation is not that good. And again, it determines on what we have in front of us in terms of the fire. Every fire is different, but the conformity and the harmony of thinking alike, and there's different social factors why we want to think alike. We're like a pack of dogs. We want to, be liked. We want to assimilate with our surroundings. Thus, we're going to think like everybody else. We're going to act like everybody else. So it's a group dynamic, and sometimes it's controversial to progress with a groupthink policy.
So it might, to paraphrase, it might be an individual who wants to fit in, wants to be liked, wants to conform, wants to not be seen as obstinate or a troublemaker. In the back of their mind, might see a problem with how things are playing out at an incident or in training, but instead of speaking up, they would just go along with it and choose not to say something. Is that kind of the essence of this group thinking?
Indeed.
Portion of it?
Indeed. It's to put another bow on it, it can be also termed rationalizing. The warning signs, and you're challenging the group's assumptions. And, I've heard time and time again from people all over the fire and emergency services, hey kids, sit down, shut up, do what you're told. That is a mentality of groupthink. And there might be warning signs that are missed in terms of normalization of deviance because of that bias, that rationalization of behavior.
Mm-hmm. Now, it would seem that an organization, if they're progressive, might not want to drift into a direction of normalized deviant behavior. Why is it so vital that organizations recognize and implement a course correction to this phenomena before they get too far down that road?
Great question. I would be remiss not to speak of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation and the slogan of "Everyone Goes Home." I'm an advocate here in New Jersey, and that message weighs heavily on me. And I do everything that I can to explain that mantra, "Everyone goes home," because I know that there is some pushback, and not everybody has the chance to go home. So recognizing and implementing corrective actions is ultimately aimed at reducing the line-of-duty death numbers. A lot of the line-of-duty deaths have been found to be in a nature of health, poor health, that has been unnoticed in the member and by the organization. So we're slowly starting to come around and implement more physicals and medical monitoring, and then that also leads to the near misses. The amount of near misses that go underreported. Just imagine this, if you will, Brother Rich. If we had 100% reporting on near miss incidents, the behavior that lead up to those incidents would be recognized, not only by the person, but by the organization. And in order to shape the future, right, shaping the future of the fire service, we have to shape the culture trends. What are the behaviors? What are the attitudes? What is the culture of the organization? What is the culture of the individual? These are great questions for promotional exams, asking a firefighter who's looking to become an officer. What are your actions? What are your attitudes, behaviors, and cultures? What actions would you lead? That's a great question for a promotional exam, is how would you implement corrective actions? And it all comes down to cultures, organizational culture.
John, why would you? I think you're spot on for sure with the observation that near misses are way underreported. So, why do you think that is?
It could be in large part because of the bravado of the fire service, bravado, salt, whatever you want to call it. People don't want to admit that they may have contributed to a bad outcome, or that they have been a victim of a bad outcome, again, because of that groupthink process. They don't want to be the whistleblower. They don't want to be known as a complainer or, as a malcontent because of the culture of the organization. If the organization had the culture of embracing people, embracing their members, reporting when bad outcomes are present, or evaluating how we can become better and seek that continuous improvement, I believe that near misses would be freely reported without prejudice or punishment.
Do you think that that there are people out there who would want to report near misses, but they're afraid they'd get in trouble? That they would be seen as somebody who's blowing the whistle on their superiors, so they just choose to shut up about it?
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree that there may be some reasons, such as punishment. It's all about perception, and in the fire service, it's almost like we are striving so hard to be perceived in a specific fashion of hardcore, of we can't do any wrong. We don't want to chastise ourselves for our actions. So I want to say that, people are, I don't want to say afraid. Let's use the word apprehensive, for fear of retribution, for fear of not being recognized as a wolf in the wolf pack, because that they are going to speak out against specific actions within the organization. Any organization who is worth their weight in gold would take that constructive criticism. And that's where I would like to interject. It needs to be constructive. There is so much deconstructive criticism, not just in the fire service, but in the world today. And it's really not lending towards education. It's not lending towards the learning process of understanding why we made the decisions that we did and how we can implement corrective actions for the future.
All right, I'm gonna throw something out to you, and maybe you can offer me some advice that can help me through a problem. When I'm teaching a class, at the very beginning, one of the things that I talk about are how many near misses that the fire service is having, and then the tie-in to situational awareness. And I'll say in the room, who in here has had a near miss? Well, if I have 100 people, maybe on the high end, 5 hands will go up. Now, you know that there's probably more in the room who have, but 5 people will raise their hand. And I'll go around and I'll say, briefly tell me about what happened so that we can all just, in a moment, learn a lesson from you. What happened and what'd you learn from it? So those 5 people will share their near miss, and quite a few of them are pretty significant events, that resulted in an injury, a significant injury, or the potential for a fatality. And they'll share this information with the class. And then I will inevitably say to them, I have this podcast radio show where I interview people who've had near misses and give them a chance to tell their story just like you did, and to tell their lessons learned just like you did to the whole class. I would love to have you on as a guest. Here's my card. Follow up. We'll get you scheduled. They don't. And it's like, right. You just told it to 100 people. And some of them will even say, yeah, I made a class that I teach around my county, making sure everybody knows, but they won't come on to the show. And I like to think that I interview people in a friendly way. What can I do to entice these people to step up and share? I mean, I have quite a few, episodes here on the show, probably, 40, 50 that are near miss stories. How can I get more of these people to raise their hand and say, I'd like the fire service to learn from my near miss?
That is a great question. If I knew the absolute answer to that, I would like to bottle it up and sell it, because I think that you and I could be rich selling that liquid courage. It comes down to moral fortitude. Apologies. And not to say that the individuals who in the class did raise their hands and participate and boldly say what had happened, but in their mind, there's a bias. And they don't want to, being in a room full of firefighters is comfortable. Firefighters look for comfortability. We want to surround ourselves with people who are thinking like us, who are acting like us. When you put your dirty laundry, or an organization's dirty laundry, out there for the rest of the world to hear, you are therefore asking for evaluation. You are asking for that criticism indirectly. And I think that people just sometimes don't want to hear how they could have been better. They don't want to hear that possibly what they did could have killed somebody. It's hard for people to grasp that. And I think that as an organization, the best way to get our people as a fire service to open up is to not create punitive discourse or punitive realms where, because you say something, now we're going to name an SOG after you, right? Or we're going to name a policy after you. And that's just part of the human nature And I really don't know the absolute answer to that question. I would think that continuously speaking with the member on a one-to-one basis, and it's almost like a group therapy session, and getting them to open up and making them feel like they are safe to do it. I think the ultimate goal would be to, if they are going to open up, have them be included in a process for the improvement. This way they feel that they have ownership of the positive of the negative outcome.
Mm-hmm. Well, another thing, John, that I stopped asking this question in my classes. I asked it, and then I realized I just need to stop. People would describe their near misses, and then I'd say, "What did your department change as a result of that near miss?" Because some of these near misses are extremely significant near misses with injuries, and I'll say, "What? Tell me some of the things that your department does differently now as a result of that." Oh,
I think the better.
there was a lot of we did nothing.
Yeah, I think that a way to maybe get some more information is not ask them what their organization has improved, ask them what they personally have improved to keep that near miss from happening again. Mm-hmm. I've become frustrated on more than one occasion with my organizations that I work for, and I've come to realize that you can only control the four walls around you. I'm a company officer. I have direct influence on the guys that I work with in my company. That is my circle of influence. When you try to change an organization, and all the change agents out there and all the leadership gurus, they say that, water boils from the bottom and you can influence change in an organization. But you must first be the change that you want to see. And then that change becomes contagious. So I think maybe try asking them individually what they changed in order to avoid those bad outcomes. Mm-hmm. And I think that they would probably tell you that they, maybe they checked their SCBAs a little bit more thoroughly, or, maybe they saw that their hydraulic tools were operating efficiently, or the engine water tank was full. These are things, these are causation factors that you find in line of duty death reports and NIOSH reports and in near miss reporting.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. Thank you. Let me switch and go a little bit different direction here from what we were just discussing, and talk about the connection of normalization of deviance and complacency. Are they the same thing, or if they're not, how are they different?
That is a resounding no. Normalization of deviance and complacency are not the same thing. When we talk about NOD, as said before, it's knowingly and willingly taking shortcuts, knowing that you are not performing to a standard that has been tried, trued, and tested to produce positive outcomes because you are under time and pressure to get a specific task done. All right? The normalization of deviance is also people who are trying to buck the system for personal gratification. That's why we take shortcuts. It's almost like, we or I can do better than what's expected from the organization or from the chief officers or, the SOGs, they don't understand what we do on a daily basis. They don't, they sit behind a desk. They don't understand the trials of an engine company or a truck company that's understaffed, or we don't have the proper working equipment, or we're tired, right? So that is some of the things that lend towards the normalization deviance. Where it's different in terms of complacency, okay, it's a hierarchy of competence. And we could talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect, the 4 stages of competence. Complacency, you just don't know what you don't know. And you may not know that you're being complacent. And again, that goes to where the NOD leads towards complacency, because if your organizational culture is to sit in the lazy boy because it's 90 degrees outside and you don't want to stretch any hose or throw any ladders, then if I'm a rookie firefighter or a probationary firefighter, that 1 or 2 years of being on a job, I'm very impressionable. If I'm in a complacent organization and or company, I'm not going to know that they're complacent because that's the way the organization operates. And that course of actions has happened long before I joined the department. And, only after being exposed to the skills, the basic skills, we fail to recognize that we have a lack of those basic skills. So hopefully I explain the difference between NOD and complacency. In the NOD, you have to know that you're taking shortcuts. With complacency, we don't realize that we are taking shortcuts that will lead to bad outcomes. Therefore, that's why it's termed complacent. We just don't know what we are doing at the time and how it's going to impact the future.
Got it. All right, now you had circle back a little bit earlier in this conversation on this particular question. You had mentioned the Dunning-Kruger effect. I'm sure there are people who have not heard of that, so explain that.
The Dunning-Kruger effect, is based off of the 4 steps of competence. In a nutshell, we don't know what we don't know. As an academy instructor, I'm taking young men and women between the ages of 18 and 24 who are unconsciously incompetent in the ways and skills of fighting fire through the culture of the fire service. It is my job to teach them the very basic skills, teaching them the how, not necessarily the why, but teaching them the what and the how. This is a halogen. This is an axe. This is a nozzle. All right. This is how it works. They were unconsciously incompetent. They had no idea the way a partner saw works or a cutter's edge saw works. At the end of their recruit training, it is my hope that I have given them the very basic foundation and very basic knowledge so that when they go to their respective departments, they have a better understanding of what they don't know. They understand that they do not know the best practices for vertical ventilation until they are told or instructed by their department and their officers. They don't know that they can improve upon their hose stretching capabilities or ladder placement or even apparatus placement, because that's not something that we teach in the academy, is how to drive an emergency vehicle, how to set up an aerial ladder, how to pump, at least not in New Jersey in the academy that I'm at. We don't teach those things, but yet they know that they still need to learn that. So that's the second stage is conscious incompetence. And then ultimately you can live an entire career and you want to get to a point where you are unconsciously competent, where you are going through the motions. And that's one of the ways to overcome complacency, as we'll discuss in the future, I'm sure. You want to get to that point where you feel that you are on autopilot. We just need to make sure that the autopilot is dialed in to the best practices.
Okay. So, perfect segue. How do we overcome complacency?
The first thing that I tell people is we need to develop habits, positive habits, draw a mental mind map, if you will. And I use myself as an example, not that I overcome complacency all the time, because we are not, oblivious to complacency. We are not superheroes. Every morning when I get to work, I have a routine. There's a specific way that I lay out my gear. I check my SCBA. I have a mental mind map, checking the box, if you will, of preparing myself for the next 24 hours of my tour. And I check the engine with my guys. Now, of course, I'm the officer. I can just go to my office and start my daily report and write in my journal and ensure and know that my guys are checking the engine. But I have that level of trust in them where I could do that. But that's where complacency would come in. If I never look at the pump panel, because I'm not the one that's going to be pumping the engine, then it is going to be a time where those unused skills are going to fade. So I develop habits. I always do the same things every time I come to work in the morning. And that's not just with my professional life. That's also my personal life. We all have our routines. We just need to make sure the routines are of positive nature. The next one is seeking an education. One of my mantras is seeking continuous improvement, understanding and allowing ourselves to know that we are not perfect, that we are going to make mistakes. And it's that golden rule: learn from your mistakes, because a mistake made twice is now a choice. So, I tell people to keep a journal. Keep a personal journal of the mistakes that they made. How often do they make them? What did they do to keep them from happening again? Seeking higher education. Education and experience go hand in hand. And I'm getting so tired of the civil war within the fire service between education and experience. The truth of the matter is you need both to survive and thrive in the fire service. One is not more important than the other. The other thing that I think shows huge returns are self-evaluations of your performance. I have a group of peers that I speak with very regularly, and they know my mission. They know why I do the things that I do and the course of actions that I take. And I ask them quite often, hey, is this conforming to what we have discussed about what I'd like to achieve in my life, personally and professionally? And it takes a strong friend, it takes a strong mentor to speak up and be honest, with constructive criticism, mind you, to let me know when I have strayed off course. And the only way to do that is self-evaluations. One of the questions that I ask in my NOD class and a few of my leadership classes in the conferences that we attend is, who here has a personal mission statement? And maybe one or two people will raise their hand, and then I question them, what is it? And then they begin to tell me what the organization's mission statement is, to protect life and property, to, fire prevention and public education. And I stopped them. I said, oh, great. I'm glad that you know the organization's mission statement. But what is your personal mission statement? Why do you do the things that you do? Why do you make the decisions that you do? And then a lot of times I get a puzzled look. I give them a little exercise, and I tell them, please, over the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour, however long the class lasts, I said, please try to pen or come up with at least a 1 or 2 sentence personal mission statement. And a lot of people come up with some great mission statements, and then that is a way to overcome complacency, to understand where you are, where you want to be, and what you're doing in between, because that's where that drift occurs. The drift occurs from where you see yourself and where you want to see yourself. So those are some ways to overcome complacency. Develop habits, seek higher education and continuous improvement, be open and honest in self-evaluations, and ask others to evaluate your progress, and then going outside of your comfort zone. Nothing positive happens when you are always comfortable.
Good advice. What are some of the best practices to ensure that we can keep complacency from returning? As much as even I've tried in my life to not allow myself to become complacent under certain conditions, I've found myself being complacent. I don't know if it's because I'm indifferent, I'm tired, I feel overconfident. So what are some of the things that we can do to keep it from returning, especially under conditions where we absolutely would not want to be complacent?
Organizationally, some best practices are following national standards, consensus standards, not following them so blindly as to, it's like checklist firefighting, but we need to overcome the reach to be like everybody else in terms of the way that we operate. Not every fire department is the same. We don't have the same staffing. We don't have the same demographics. We don't have the same equipment. But that does not mean that we can't strive to achieve national standard outcomes. Credentialing and accreditation of organizations is a great way to avoid complacency. That is a great practice. As you said earlier, we were both at the Center for Public Safety Excellence Conference, and the work that center does is tremendous, and it ensures that organizations, along with people, the members of the fire service, are following peer-reviewed best practices. and they're achieving core competencies. And they do that by evaluations. That's that self-evaluation. And then you go before a jury of your peers. Another one organizationally is to embrace education. And I'm not just talking about higher education. I'm talking about a well-rounded education, but it must be relevant. It must be relevant. It would be foolish for myself to immerse myself in wildland urban interface firefighting. I am in a concrete jungle in northern New Jersey. Not to say that I shouldn't have a brief overview of wildland firefighting, but if I focus all my time and energy on the wildland urban interface, that is not relevant education. There's only so much information that we can hold in our brain housings, and it must be relevant. Setting the proper example personally, sometimes that is hard. We need to seek out and find mentors. We need to seek out and emulate positive peers within the fire service. And you do that by knowing your people. Right? When I was a Marine, right, I knew the people I was serving with. I knew their family members' names, their children's names. I knew what their wants and desires were. I knew what their personal mission statement was. As a fire officer, I strive to do the same thing with my company. I strive to know what makes them tick, what motivates them. How can I encourage them to want to seek that continuous improvement? And to me, those are some of the best practices. I'm sure there can be others that are listed, but to me, the efficacy of those practices have seen some tremendous returns.
Wow. Great advice. Great advice. I know you got a whole program designed around this, and I see your name popping up at conferences left and right. If someone out there listening wanted to learn more about you or more about this program or how to book you, how do they find out more? Where do they find you at?
The easiest way to get a hold of my course offerings and where I'm going to be is my website. It's instructorjohndixon.com. You can learn a little bit about me. You can see my personal mission statement. You can see the courses that are offered. And one of the things that I like to tell people is that sociology and psychology, but most importantly, the study of the human condition, are passions of mine as I strive to see continuous improvement. But not only do that, but help others to do the same thing. And the best way, you can read some of my articles. My blog is up there. Just go to my website, instructorjohndixon.com. My cell phone is there. You can drop me an email. And, of course, I am all over social media and all the different platforms. And I like to have dialogue. I like to converse with people in the fire service. And I welcome phone calls, emails, and let's have a discussion on how we can see continuous improvement.
What's your Twitter handle, John?
My Twitter handle is @Instructor Dixon.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me this morning and talking about this incredibly important topic, one that I think is underserved in the fire service, and it was very inspiring for me to see you pick it up, find the passion with this topic, and taking it out there and sharing it with the fire service is it's going to make a difference, and I appreciate the effort that you're giving to it.
Well, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate everything that you do. I'm a big fan of yours, and I follow your work. And I'm just very appreciative of you having me on the show and allowing me to share the message.
Super. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Instructor John Dixon for sharing your passion with us today about the normalization of deviance and complacency. If you want to know more about how to get connected with John, his contact information is located on the show notes page on the homepage of the SA Matters website. Just go to the tab that says Podcast, click on it, and then scroll down to episode 120, and then click on the Show Notes tab. If you've experienced or witnessed a near miss and would like to have a platform to share your lessons learned with others, contact me by going to the SA Matters website and clicking on the Contact Us link on the top of the homepage. Think about it for a moment. The lessons learned from your near-miss events could save the life of another first responder. That's really powerful. If you want to share your experience, contact me. Okay, as I always do, I want to take a moment to thank the departments and the organizations that have hosted some recent Situational Awareness Matters tour stop events. I do this to show my appreciation to the organizations who put forth the effort to organize, advertise, and fund great training experiences for their members and others in their region. Your efforts to bring this valuable and powerful training on situational awareness and high-risk, high-consequence decision-making to your members and others is really appreciated. Recent tour stops include the Iowa Fire Training Bureau in Ames, Iowa, and where I am now at the Overland Park Fire Department in Overland Park, Kansas. And by the time this episode airs, I will have completed a program for the Shawnee Fire Department in Shawnee, Oklahoma. If you're interested in joining me for an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stop, on August 17, 19, and 20, I will be delivering 3 programs for Fire Rescue International in San Antonio, Texas. Thank you to the International Association of Fire Chiefs for giving me the opportunity to present at FRI now more than 10 years in a row, including the opportunity to keynote the conference in the big room in Chicago. That was quite an honor. I really appreciate your support of my message. August 22 to 26, I'll be delivering a Company Officer Development Institute program with my co-presenter Patrick Harper in Zionsville Fire Department in Indiana. The Company Officer Development Institute program is a week-long, no PowerPoint, no book, no BS, no baloney program to teach company officers how to be successful with the soft skills of leadership, problem-solving, conflict resolution, motivation, teamwork. Again, no PowerPoint, no book. All facilitated adult learning, teaching them the skills that keep the problems out of the chief's office. This will be the 24th offering of the Company Officer Development Institute nationwide, and I'm really proud for the opportunity to be in Zionsville that week. Then I'll be staying over in Zionsville for August 27th for an encore program of situational awareness. And then on August 28th, a situational awareness program for the Heartland Deerfield, Michigan Fire Department. If you're anywhere in the Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, or Wisconsin area and are interested in being a companion, that would be a great time frame to be a companion. September 8th, I'll be doing a program for the Arizona State Fire School, delivering the keynote for that on creating thinking firefighters. Also on September 8th, we'll be at the Southwest Fire and EMS Chiefs Association Conference in Meridian, Idaho. This program will be conducted by Fire Chief Jerry Strike, a certified master instructor for the Situational Awareness Matters content. I'm really excited to have now a second instructor to help share the load and to provide programs on dates where there are conflicts in my schedule. This is a big step in advancing the Situational Awareness Matters mission. Thank you, Jerry, for stepping up and becoming part of the team. On September 10th, I'll be at the Upper Providence Fire Department in Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. This will be a great companion opportunity if you're in PA, Maryland, or New Jersey. September 13th and 14th for the Horry County Fire Department in South Carolina. Again, a great companion opportunity if you're in South Carolina or North Carolina. September 23rd, I'll be delivering the keynote for the Wisconsin Fire Chiefs Association Conference. September 27th, I'll be doing a program for the International Association of Fire Chiefs, a company officer leadership seminar in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'll be delivering 2 situational awareness programs there, one on training for failure and one on flawed situational awareness. September 29th, a program for the Welcome Fire Department in Minnesota. September 30th, a program for the Sioux Falls Fire Department in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and then also delivering the keynote address for the recruit class graduation. Thank you so much to all the program hosts, and here's hoping there will be a tour stop near you, and we'll get a chance to meet up. The last time I was delivering situational awareness programs in Southwest Minnesota, I had a chance to stop by and visit my sponsor for this podcast show, Midwest Fire. Midwest Fire makes all poly fire apparatus that are changing the industry. Seriously, you need to check them out at MidwestFire.com. When I was there, they showed me a piece of material that is used in the body of the fire apparatus that had been shot with a .38 caliber pistol. They took that piece and they took it out on a range and shot it, and it barely made a mark. I mean, it was just it did not penetrate. It did not go through. It basically made a mark on the surface of this poly material. This is strong stuff. Think about how many times we just back into things or bumped by things, and it creates body damage. This is pretty amazing, this all poly design, not to mention the fact that it's much lighter weight material. Anyhow, if you get a chance, visit their website, midwestfire.com. I sat down and talked to a few of their employees about what separates Midwest Fire from their competitors. And I got a chance to ask account executive Dalton Lingbeck about why Midwest Fire doesn't have a dealer network. Imagine a fire truck manufacturer without a dealer network. Let's listen into what he had to say. Okay, Dalton, I got a question for you. No dealer network. What's up with that? Are you guys just not big enough to have a dealer network, or what's the strategy here for not having a dealer network for a fire truck manufacturer? That's a little bit out of the norm.
Yeah, no, it's not that we're not big enough. It's really because we actually had people that have come to us and want to be dealers for us, and it's more of a strategy for us to be more direct with the customer. We really want to have direct communication with them, and with the benefit for them as well is that they have direct communication with manufacturing. So really the beautiful thing is that when customers call us and talk to us about trucks, they're talking to an account representative at the facility. So if they have questions that we can't answer, we're 10 steps away from engineering, we're 20 steps away from production. So getting the answers to their questions is really efficient and really easy. It really keeps costs down as well. When you deal with the big guys and they have big dealer networks, they have commission structures for their dealers. You're dealing with a middleman where we don't have those costs. So we look after our customers, make sure that their trucks are affordable, and we make them even more affordable with not having those dealer networks. And then finally, miscommunication is minimal, basically because, like I said, you're dealing with us at the manufacturer facility. We make contact really efficient, and it's just direct, so it's really nice.
Yeah. So if I go to a conference and I see a manufacturer, they have some trucks there, and their booth is just swarming with people, and I'm not guessing, I know those are all their dealer reps. And then I walk over to Midwest Fire, and I see your apparatus on display, and I see some of your people there. Those aren't dealer reps. Those are people from right here in Laverne, Minnesota, that have gone to the conference. And you're talking to the direct people that are going to watch that truck being built beyond the walls that we're sitting in.
Exactly, yeah. So we don't bring anybody else except people that work and are employed by Midwest Fire. You'll see in our booth, you'll see a variety. You'll see the account representatives, so all your sales guys, and then you'll see some years we bring engineering, some years we bring people from the shop, on the shop floor, from production. Our CEO, Sarah Atchison, is there every single year. You can talk to her. We bring people from the office. It's just, it's everyone you talk to is directly here at the facility in Laverne, and it's nice.
Yeah. So if you're wondering what differentiates Midwest Fire from their competitors, there you have it, right from the horse's mouth. So check them out at midwestfire.com. Thank you to Midwest Fire President Sarah Atchison and all your staff for your awesome commitment to improving first responder safety. And I sincerely appreciate your support and sponsorship of this podcast and my mission. Hey, if you're interested in seeing a listing of all the upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stop locations, head over to the SA Matters website, click on the blue box on the right side of the homepage that is labeled Upcoming Events Schedule. The schedule is always changing, so check back often. I want to share with you a piece of feedback I received about this podcast through iTunes. Every episode, I ask listeners to go to iTunes and provide some feedback about the show. And it really, really makes my day when I get some feedback from listeners. So take a moment to go to iTunes and give the show a review. And hopefully 5 stars if you like the show. And leave a comment. Anyhow, I don't share the feedback to brag. Rather, I do it to show appreciation of those who've inspired me and help me share my message. So this one says, from jump seat to fire chief, you can learn from this man and his passion. Thanks, Chief, for reigniting the fire in me. And it is signed by a Department of Defense Fire Captain, ARFF. Thank you for that piece of feedback. I really appreciate it. If you want to send me feedback, you can do it through iTunes, or you can go to the SA Matters website and just click on the Contact Us link. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes as well, or you can also subscribe on Stitcher Radio. In case you didn't know, I've written 5 books on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making. These books contain critical lessons for improving your situational awareness and decision-making under stress. You can check these books, videos, and other things I have available out on the SA Matters website on the store link. You can also get the books on Amazon if you're interested. The books that are purchased through my website, I actually sign every one of them personally to the recipient. If you do that, if you buy them on Amazon, which is fine, I can't sign them because they're shipped to you directly from Amazon. If you're not a member of the SA Matters community of learners yet, please consider joining. You can become a member by just going to the SA Matters website, clicking on the red box on the right side of the homepage. It says, Become a Member. Membership is free, and when you sign up, I'll send you a special report I've created for new members called 25 Best Practices for Improving First Responder Safety. If you want to get connected with me on social media, you can find me on Twitter, at Rich Gasaway, or at SA Matters on Twitter. Thanks to everybody that's connected with me there. Almost 17,000 followers on the 2 Twitter accounts. You can also get connected on the Facebook page. I have a private page there. Facebook.com/groups/SA Matters. There's an enticement there to join the Facebook group. There's a discount code in there for 50% off the newest book. That'll save you $20. You can get connected on LinkedIn by searching Rich Gasaway on LinkedIn. If you want to watch some videos, I also have a YouTube channel, SA Matters TV. SA Matters TV on YouTube. Well, that's it. Episode 120 is complete. Thank you again to my guest, Instructor John Dixon. Thank you to our podcast sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thanks to all the live program hosts. And thank you, our listeners, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.